Welcome back to our podcast, Off, Over 50 and Fired. Now what?
Hi, I'm Shelly.
And I'm Linda. On our last podcast, we talked about codependency, how we were completely attached to our companies, whether it be the phone, computers, or how it defined us. What we're going to do is further that conversation in this podcast and look at how we continue that transition, which, by the way, is not easy.
No, this shit's not easy. It's exhausting physically, emotionally, financially, and actually one of those days today that we're just kind of hitting a little bit of a low. We talked about that roller coaster in the very first podcast, and both Linda and I are in a little bit of a low spot right now, but we know we'll work through it, but it's tough. It's just not easy.
It's tough because you don't know what's going to trigger it. Like some days you're absolutely just fine.
Mm-hmm.
Like Shelly and I are going about our day, everything's fine, and then all of a sudden, boom, someone says something or something kind of enters into your head, and then all of a sudden you kind of all of a sudden realize, man, I've never been in this situation before.
Mm-hmm.
This is a tough situation. What do I do next? What am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
How do I do it? And how do I, interact with other people without bringing everybody else down with me?
Yep. And for me, it was just, I didn't sleep well last night, so I woke up, I was exhausted, and the minute I was exhausted, everything started to seem like it was tenfold more difficult to deal with today. Just made me sad, anxious, and also a little bit angry, I think. But, it was a hard day today for both of us.
I think for me, it was more the angry for me.
Mm-hmm.
It was a holiday weekend, so got to spend some time with my family, and it kind of made me realize like what's important,
Mm-hmm.
how much meaningful they are in my life. And, going through this, I'll get through it. I've got a great family, great set of friends, so I will get through it. But coming back and then just getting an email from someone asking for something, and not even like thinking about, should I be asking this person for this?
Mm-hmm.
Is it really the right thing to do? And then just feeling as if I'm, I don't know, being put upon, or they're trying to squeeze every last bit
They're squeezing every last drop out of you, Linda, for sure. It's the way it is.
Just like, if you wanted more from me, why didn't you just keep me?
Mm-hmm.
And why are you all of a sudden panicking and trying to understand, well, how can I make sure that we take whatever we can from her so that we can be in the best position that we can to move forward?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Versus, realizing that maybe this isn't the right time, or maybe that this person maybe should stay on and have a longer transition period, whatever. I felt angry at that point, that they're asking of these things, and I'm just like, well, what about if I just took all my vacation and decided just to leave? And I wasn't staying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What would you do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard. There's just so many mixed emotions. There's so much excitement for us and everything about what's out there. The potential of our podcast taking off, and we really believe it does, because I think it resonates with everybody with everybody who's going through this, and the feelings that you're feeling and the challenges you're being faced with. But again, this shit's not easy.
And then the other thing is, as you look on it, how do you get yourself out of that kind of rut? For me, is looking at what is the potential opportunities, right?
Mm-hmm.
What can you do? What can you do next? What can you do that be different, that would be more fun, or, something that maybe you've wanted to do but haven't had the ability to do that, and moving on to that next opportunity. Mm-hmm. And as you put yourself in that place, if you have to move on to the next opportunity, means that you have to communicate to people now on the outside who you are, what you've done, what you can accomplish, what you have accomplished. And really the first way that anyone does that is through resumes, right? So you have to kind of dust them off, look at them, and try to figure out, well, how is this 2 pages of paper going to define me, right? Because usually you have to keep it nice and short.
Yeah, and I think the last time we talked about the fact how our roles really defined us as well, our careers. They really helped us become who we were. I mean, we loved our jobs. We still love our jobs, and it's difficult. But before we actually get into the resume stuff and what Linda said really helps her, in terms of, getting out of that rut. The other thing is, you know what? We sat down like we normally do. We've got a nice glass of wine. We've got some potato chips, and we've got wine, some cheese and crackers, and it's making us feel a little bit better, man. It's taking the edge off, and that's helpful too.
Absolutely. Maybe we want to give our wine recommendation.
Yeah, this week we actually are having a nice Zinfandel. It's an Oak Ridge, and it's nice because the weather's a little blustery outside, and this is a little bit hardier, and it's warming the cockles of our heart.
There you go. And excuse us, but last podcast we told you that we were drinking Montepulciano, but we didn't tell you what it was.
Yeah, and it's a Vecchia Cantina that we had last week. It was wonderful as well. So again, it's looking towards the future, but also nurturing yourself right now to help get you over the little downslides. And today that was really around the chips, a little wine, and a little cheese and crackers as well.
And it's not a bad idea when you first start looking at your resume.
Yes, absolutely. A little overwhelming.
Can be quite overwhelming. I know for me, it was in particular because I hadn't really submitted or looked at another position for almost 20 years. So for me, as Shelley knows, I actually had to go for clues in documents and other things in the company that I had done in order to even look for dates of transition of one position to another position over the last 20 years. So it was quite a task for me. And it was bittersweet because as I went through my documentation and sort of some of the things that I did and some of the announcements that were done at the company, I realized what a wonderful career I had and all these great opportunities and how I worked with so many different groups and had such, tremendous amount of opportunity within the company to do some amazing projects and to be part of some amazing teams. But then also it kind of, at times choked me up thinking about, gee, that's it. I'm going to be leaving the company. And, I was grateful for the opportunity, but also at the same time saddened by the fact that I'd have to leave that and leave the connections and the networks that I had put in place.
It's kind of hard when all of a sudden your career is just added to a piece of paper. It just comes down to a piece of paper now, and that's like the cold, hard reality of, what? That's all it is right now because it's a job of the past, so it goes on that piece of paper.
And I think that's one of the things I remember because Shelley had actually had hers updated sooner than I had. And when I looked at it, it was like so many projects, like Shelley's font size and how many, different jobs and her achievements and all of the accomplishments that she had was just packed right in there. And you could see that, oh my God, here's a person with a tremendous amount of strengths, a tremendous amount of experience, trying to pack it all in so that people see all that can be brought to any other company or to any other opportunity. And I think as for yourselves, when you look at it, you want to tell people how many great things that you've done and how you contributed to the company. But unfortunately, it's difficult for people who are reading it.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely need to figure out, and that's when we started to go online and we were looking at the different formats. It was overwhelming when we actually went and you saw the different 10,000 different resume formats. What was going to be the thing that was really going to sell you, but you didn't want it to be overwhelming? So you had to find the right balance of the really important information, and you didn't want to leave anything out, but you didn't want it to be overwhelming and people will be like, oh my God, I don't need to look at a 15-page resume, which we didn't. We actually both worked really hard to get to a page and a half. We couldn't get it down to a page. There's just no way because we've both been around too long. But it really was, how do I make sure that I'm hitting those highlights and, just enough to keep people interested?
So the one good thing is that Shelley actually had a starting point, and then we have a friend of ours who's extremely good at editing and writing, and so she took a quick look at Shelley's resume and basically trimmed it down and really got to the essence of the core things for each of the positions. And she told us, you should be focusing on the most recent 2 to 3 positions, make those the meatiest ones, and then after that, you kind of just summarize at a very high level. And if people are interested in those past positions that go beyond, 10 years, 15 years, then you can do that as part of your interview or your follow-up calls or anything like that. But really make sure that the last 2 to 3 positions are super meaty and really have the accomplishments that brought whatever positive influence into the company that you've done. And then from my perspective, the other thing that really helped in understanding is how to phrase things, like which ones to put on top, which things make more of an impression right away. And again, for me, it took somebody else reading it. It took like Shelley helping me out and saying, you know what, that's not as important, and maybe you should push that down. Or making sure they had a really crisp opening paragraph about who I am. Because usually they won't read that much beyond that. They'll get an essence for that first paragraph of an overview of your skill set, and then whether they read on after that, you don't know.
Yeah, or even if they do, then you at least know that the next 2 jobs, your most recent ones, are the ones that you really have to have the crispest, with the most hard-hitting information that you think your industry is going to want to know about you, right? So that's really important. So, and just a funny story about this is, as we started to transition to our new laptops, right, and we brought over our resumes and we're trying to, update them and everything, I was having such a freaking hard time in Word, new version, and all I want to do was autocorrect, and I couldn't find the freaking thing. You have to go to a whole different spot to find it, and every time I thought I autocorrected the 5 little typos that I had, it wasn't saving it, and it was just crazy. And it's overwhelming how when you get so wedded to your old stuff that your company's version of Word or whatever it happens to be, and you're like, oh my God, where is this simple little adjustment?
Exactly. When you get like these new tools, fancy tools that are just the latest and the greatest, because that's what comes with the new computers, then all of a sudden you kind of realize, wait, I'm not up to date with all this stuff. And you hunt and peck, and something that usually would only take you a few minutes now takes you like 15, 20 to try to get done. It's crazy.
Yeah, it makes you feel like a freaking idiot, when you're just like, really? Where is this thing? And I don't want to send out my resume with typos. I've got 5 that I need to adjust, and I can't find it.
Or just even saving a document. It took me a few minutes to even figure out how to save the document, because I didn't realize that now they're auto-saving all the time.
Right.
And so you didn't have to go out. They kind of hid, I don't want to say hid, but they kind of didn't make it as convenient to save the document.
Yeah, and you got the OneDrive, and you got your
Google
hard drive, and
hard
your
drive.
PC, and it's just amazing, and it gets saved everywhere. And you know what? Right now I'm saving it everywhere, because it doesn't matter, because I know it's there, but I'm like double and triple saving.
But it's amazing how much you don't really understand how your company is actually simplifying everything for you. They're taking away a lot of options because they want to keep it very, very, very focused, and they don't do a lot of upgrades. So that when you do go outside and you start putting together your personal computer, and I think that's one thing, is that, we had talked about not having a personal computer, relying on the company computer, and those are the kinds of things you kind of lose touch with. Is what is the latest out in the workforce?
Yeah, because you're used to what you're used to, right? And so it was a rude awakening for us. We knew we needed those computers. We talked about it last time, like Linda said. But then, as you start to really use it, you're like, oh my God, I know nothing. It's a struggle, because everything's new. It's, we're on version, I don't know, but now we're on version 10, and it's, maybe we're 3 or 4 versions behind. I don't know, but it's difficult. It's just not easy, but you have to be patient, and you realize that you'll learn it, but it's not easy.
No, and don't get too crazy about all the formats. Like MS Word, if you end up getting that package, or you use Google Docs, or whatever it is that you end up getting with your new computer, just look for the simplest, cleanest format that you can possibly have. Not a lot of doodads.